just spotted banana peels on the plants. I think they're a good source of vitamin K, is it? Potassium? I'm not entirely sure. And I'm just going to give you a wave because my husband is standing behind you in the gym kit and he's about to go out for a run. So hello and welcome from a rather dull looking February day. But as a high point, it's pancake day and I have already had my body weight in pancakes this morning. So if you're watching, let me know in the comments what your favourite pancake topping is. I had, as I say, a lot of pancakes, lemon and sugar, and then we've got some runny golden syrup, which is a game changer if you like to have golden syrup on your pancakes instead of digging the viscous mixture out of the tin can. So doing a little bit of gardening today, a bit of gardening light. As you know, I'm not really a gardener. And I look, I haven't actually got any daffodils. Well, I think I have got 1 or 2 daffodils up there. But I do have daffodils growing in pots. And we were away for half term. And my lovely house sitter stroke dog sitter left me several pots of bulbs on my patio table. So I thought, wouldn't it be rather lovely to actually do something with them? And what I'm going to do is to, reproduce an idea, steal an idea from a friend of mine. So I don't know whether you remember watching one of my videos way back when, it would have been last summer. I went to a flower festival in the local village and I think I probably uploaded a video about that flower festival, and if I can find it I'll leave it in the links underneath the video when it's published. But I went with 2 friends and there were 3 of these little coffee cups. Mine's a little bit dirty inside. And we decided we would challenge ourselves and do something with the coffee cups. Needless to say, my coffee cup has sat up on a high shelf in my workshop and I've admired it every time I went in. But my friend decanted some of her potted bulbs, which she got from the local market, and put them into her little coffee cup. And it all looked fabulous. Good morning, Linda. Thank you for joining me. And what she did is she then had a new tray, but it was in a vintage style with a pattern on the bottom and a bit of wicker work around the outside. And she had corralled all her unusual containers, which were all, I think they were actually all fine bone china and probably from her mum and her aunt and from the charity shop. It just looked absolutely fantastic. And she had them on a tray and she had a lid over her oven and she uses that as a worktop. And then when she wants to cook, she just lifts the tray to one side, lifts the lid on the oven, and then she can use that as a conventional oven. So I have done the same thing. I'm just wondering whether you'll be able to see okay if I move the camera like that. So I have got a collection of dishes and I've gone for greens and whites. So I've got my little china coffee cup with the gold and the green. I then have a Wedgwood vase, a tiny Wedgwood vase. So it says Wedgwood, Barlaston, England. And for those of you who are following along on my Instagram, which is at flowerstart with an underscore at the end, or perhaps you're a member of my Facebook group, Flowerstart World, you'll know that I went to Wedgwood during the half-term break. So it was really very interesting. And then sort of an old one and a new one. And good morning, Joan. You're saying it took you a while to find the chat button. So I got this vase, and I think this was a charity shop vase. White glass, but I quite like the fact that it was a sort of sleek modern version of my very traditional urn. And then I have got my little Chippendale glass salt. We would have put salt in it. So I don't know whether you saw yesterday's video when I took you on a shop with me video in historic Sandwich here in Kent, but I spotted a Chippendale bowl, a big glass bowl in the charity shop, but it was listed at £25. And I didn't know it was Chippendale, other than the fact I nearly fell over when I saw the price, but it had a handy card inside saying it was Chippendale. So I'm now wondering whether that is Chippendale, and actually I have got my celery vase in use, whether that was Chippendale too. So if you are an antiques expert or just interested in glassware, what do I need to do to find out whether that is a genuine piece of Chippendale or whether it is a reproduction, a copy? I would like to know. So the reason I've got this one out today is because it hasn't quite been put away. I'm just wondering whether to use it or not. And then I have got a green. This will be depression glass, so made in the 20s and 30s. Joan's saying she needs to relocate to England to come and pick up some of these containers. I will say, Joan, that sometimes I go to the charity shop and I do not find a single thing. And it's the going and the going and the going and the going. And now that I'm becoming more confident with what I'm buying in the charity shop, my friends and I, it's no nice going with friends, we're sort of thinking about widening our area of interest, that we might go to more vintage sales or perhaps even to antique shops. I think antique shops sort of come across as being really scary, but I think they're just, an upmarket charity shop. And I guess all the antique dealers will have sourced their materials, from house clearances and from car boot sales and from charity shops themselves. And they just curate them in one place. But of course, they know what they're looking at, and I don't. So I have got this. Again, it's a charity shop buy. I've never really used it, but this was the start of my interest, really, in all things vintage. Oh, thank you, Linda. That's very kind of you, saying I've got an eye for the detail. I will say, though, that I have picked up an awful lot of rubbish over the years, and I fell into the trap of thinking, because I was shopping at the charity shop and everything was inexpensive, that I could afford to buy it, and therefore I did. And I think I have become more discerning now. So when I go into the charity shops, I don't look at the baby stuff, because years and years ago it would be baby toys and clothes and books I was looking at. I don't look at the clothes anymore. I have got quite enough clothes and I don't need to be looking for any more. I've gone through my phase of sewing and crafting and that kind of thing. I did a lot of that when my daughter was little, and I haven't got my sewing machine out for years and years, and I have got a couple of projects that I do want to tackle. And I think you do just become more discerning. So when I go into the charity shop, I don't look at the whole shop. I just go straight to the homeware department. And when I say department, sometimes it might only be 2 or 3 shelves of things, and I can pretty much scan whether I'm interested or not. And of course, I am really narrowing down my search, because I'm only interested in things that I can use for flower arranging. So either vintage flower frogs, that kind of thing, interesting vases and containers. And as I'm not, though I still teach my flower arranging classes, I don't supply the materials for my classes anymore. So everybody comes to class, brings their materials with them. So I don't need to have a whole stock of, 28 white vases, which I think we talked about last week. So I've got my depression glass here. So my interest in depression glass started because my granny always had a green dressing table set on her dressing table. I think I might have told you about it before. So the rectangular dish, and I think mine had hers had a little covered bowl on it. And I think it had one other item as well. I can't immediately remember what that was, but I've got that now. And it just sort of sparked that interest. So for ages and ages I was collecting loads of green glass, and during lockdown I gave away loads of green glass. I didn't need it all. I was collecting it because it reminded me of my grandmother. So I can see Linda there saying that she's just recently made a bag for her daughter out of a pair of curtains. And I will say, the 2 friends I go charity shopping with, they are both quite into sewing and into making bunting and all sorts of things. And one friend, they look out for duvet covers, and one friend as well looks out for clothing that she can cut up. So she particularly likes gingham, so she looks out for summer dresses from schools. At the weekend she bought some lovely check shirts. I think one of them was from Ben Sherman, and then she recycles them. She cuts them up and she uses them for crafting projects. So a comment flashed up from Joan. I think, Joan, you were saying that I'd helped you or guided you anyway with some advice on containers to use for some of your arrangements. So this little jar here is, I imagine this would have had a stopper in it at some point. And certainly the ones I've seen at vintage fairs have had stoppers, but I think that was a charity shop buy because I'd spotted it at a vintage fair. And I thought, you do kind of get sucked into thinking, all these things are lovely at the vintage fair, I must go and have them myself. But I don't live in the kind of house that suits lots of old-fashioned stuff. So it's a constant discussion point with me and my husband. He likes clean modern lines and I like to collect things from yesteryear. So hopefully we've got a happy balance. And then my last thing I've got, again, I've shown this previously on a thrift haul. It's a glass container with quite a decorative raised relief pattern on it. And they're actually flowers with little leaves. And it's got like a pearlescence to it. Now, I think that when I got this, that I put it through the dishwasher to clean it. I don't think it's dishwasher safe because that sort of pearlescence is bubbling up. And I'm wondering whether it's either got a plasticky coating on it or it's just meant to be hand wash only. You see it's slightly translucent. So I quite like that as well. And then because I need to corral everything, I wanted a circular dish to put them on because all my vases, that mouth openings are circular. So I wanted to carry on that circular theme. But I don't have any, but I do have 2 circular trays, but they were just a bit too big for the small quantity of little mini vases I had. So what I have done is I have got myself this flat plate. Now this is a plate that is the bottom of a quiche Lorraine dish. My mum, many Christmases ago, bought me a quiche Lorraine dish, and it had, it's always difficult when you're serving out your flans and your quiches to sort of get your serving implements down. She bought me this one that had a silicone edge to it, so it had sides to it, and then when you baked your quiche and it cooled, you just peeled off the silicone edges and you were left with a serving plate. Well, I've long got rid of the silicone bit, but I've kept this as a serving plate. It's totally dead flat, and I thought it would look rather nice when I've planted up my little bulbs to have these on my tray. So again, you're corralling it wherever I decide to have it, and I quite like to move my little flowers and potted up arrangements around the house. They don't ever sit in one place. It's not so much that I want to move them necessarily, it's more a case that they're getting in the way of everybody else. So as a goodwill measure, instead of me complaining that I've left all my artistically arranged bits and pieces on the side, I just smile and I just lift them up on the tray and I move them somewhere else. So I may well, really copying my friend, I may put them on the top of my oven with the glass lid down, or they might go on my island unit, or I might put them on the kitchen table. My husband doesn't really like flowers on the kitchen table. He says it gets in the way of his food. But I'll forgive him for that. I could put them out, leave them out on the patio table if it was fine and dry. I don't want any frost, though, getting to my containers. Or I could put it on the dining table, which I use as my home office. So this is what I'm going to do today. And now I've talked about my manicure. I am really rough with my hands, and I have had for the first time ever a gel manicure, which is now 2 weeks old today. I am desperately trying to get it to last. Yes, beautiful birdsong, Linda, and they're only plain old sparrows. So they are, I'm filming under the pergola. You can see the uprights here and here. And over the pergola, we have got a grapevine growing and a couple of clematis as well. And then the bird, they've gone quiet now, we know we're talking about them. They nest up in this is quite a thick growth on it, but also I don't know whether the camera will pick it up, but on the side of the kitchen, can you see the bird houses there? They get well used, so I think they're sort of staking out the birdhouse. They're checking out that everything's okay. But it is really lovely, isn't it, to have that bird song? And in fact, I don't know whether you spotted it when I was filming the introduction to the sandwich video. I filmed it on Sunday morning, and I had my back door open because it was nice and warm on Sunday, and you could still hear the bird song there as well. So it's quite nice, isn't it? A natural soundtrack. And it's just fortuitous, really, because I know that lots of YouTubers put on background music, and I just don't have a clue how to do it. So I'm just relying on nature as my background music. So on with the daffodils, the tete-a-tete. Let's just also, oh, I've only just looked right down at this. I knew these were different because they're not as advanced in growth, but I don't know whether you can see what those are. If you look right down inside the growth there, I can see the very compact heads of the grape hyacinth coming out. And in fact, when I look down deep inside, they do slightly look like maggots at the moment, a sort of dark bluish, greyish maggot. I'm not sure whether the camera will pick it up. I do absolutely love grape hyacinths. They're just so delicate and lovely. So what should we do? So yes, my manicure. So I'm going to do my gardening. Oh, school strikes. Oh, Joan. So you won't need to be doing any patrol crossings today. Yeah. So I think, yes, lots of strikes going on at the moment. So anyway, I hope you enjoy your morning of freedom, Joan. And I hope the teachers get what they're asking for. So I've bought myself some rubber gloves. Now, as you know, my husband does all the shopping, so the food shopping. So I normally ask him, I write a list, and he gets it. And when I started having my nails done, I was told by the beauty salon that if I'm going to do the washing up, I should wear rubber gloves. And I've always been too lazy to put rubber gloves on. So I specified to my husband that I didn't want yellow rubber gloves. I wanted a pair to tone with our kitchen. So he's got me this really beautiful pair of rubber gloves. They're sort of that colour, a sort of bluey, greeny teal. They look very nice, but they're actually too tight, and I struggle to put them on. And of course, when they're wet, I struggle to take them off. So I went to the supermarket at the weekend because I wanted to buy some tulips for a project I'm doing. So I was searching for large rubber gloves. So I've got large rubber gloves on in order that I can do my pretend gardening, in order that I don't damage my very expensive manicure. So here it goes. So what I have got here as well, rather disgustingly, perhaps I shouldn't admit it, this is the bowl I made my pancake batter in this morning, and it was soaking in the sink. And I thought, I'll just tip that out, and I want a little bit of water on the side. So because there's no drainage in any of these containers, that I wanted to be able just to make sure my flowers were, had enough water, but weren't going to be waterlogged or dry out. Look at that, That makes me feel like a real garden. Do I convince you that you're on Gardener's World? So I am now, and what I thought with my bowl of water is not only would I soak my bulbs in there, but I'm thinking as well, for some of the bulbs, I might actually, it would be quite rough when you pull them apart. I might actually soak the bulbs in order that I just get the little bit of roots that are showing. Let's see whether I can show you that in a bit more detail. So for instance, I could put that in there, but it just looks really messy. But if I waggled in the water, I could clean off the roots and then make it look more designer. And sort of have them in like that. So that's flipping to one side. So Joan, you've bought your tulip. So Joan, let's talk tulips, because we were chatting about this on that Instagram post that I made. Where did you buy your tulips from, Joan? Did you get them from the florist, or did you go to the supermarket? Because I was slightly disappointed with my tulips, because they were so small that the flower head, I would say, would be a third of the size. It was half the length and not quite as wide. So I think, overall, it was about a third of the size of a tulip you grow in the garden. And I just noticed, of course, as you do, that one of the florists in town was, doing a post on their tulips, and they had proper big tulips, and I wish I'd bought them there. You should always go to your florist first. So I've chosen a bigger bulb in there, so it's sitting down straight. So that is number one, if I just need to clean off the gunkiness there. That would be as simple as the arrangement needs to be. With the opaque bowls, I am going to probably plant those back up with soil, but the glass bottles I thought would be quite nice if I did have them as see-through containers. So I'm flicking off the soil onto the table because I might want to use that later, and then cleaning off the roots and the top of the flower bulb as best I can. Of course, if you had more time, you could actually leave these to soak and really get the clean roots. The combination of being firm enough that the water washes away the soil, but you don't want to be pulling all the roots off. So it's a little bit cleaner. And then I'm going to twist those roots around. And that can stay in the pot. So it's just a really simple, what could be simpler? Jane, you're saying you made a beautiful wreath with spring flowers. The thing about wreaths with spring flowers, Joan, is how do they keep them alive? I think sometimes these things are made beautifully for the photograph, or were the bulbs still attached to their bulbs, the bulb flowers? That might be the way around of doing it. I've certainly done that before with tulips. Absolutely gorgeous to have a sort of swirl of tulips going around. But unless you've got a water source, they're just going to fade really quickly. And unlike some flowers, like if you put roses, fresh roses into your door wreath, it would dry and it would look intentional. But with the fleshiness of the spring flowers, they don't dry in the same way. They sort of flag rather than drying. Although I will say, I'm a great fan of leaving tulips in the vase. You know how they grow towards the light. And then when the petals dry out, they do become quite ethereal. They're almost, papery texture of the leaves. And as long as you don't breathe too hard on them, they will stay and they look absolutely beautiful. It's that combination, though, whether you think you live in Miss Havisham's house, what are those dead flowers doing now? I thought you were a florist, Julie, compared to it looking lovely and lush. So I will need to probably wash down the edge of the containers in due course when I actually put this together on my kitchen table. And then these, I'm hesitating because I'm worried that my short-stemmed tete-a-tete are just going to fall down into the base of this. But I think because the jar is tapered, I should be able to wedge them near the top. I've got a lump of soil there. And in fact, will it? Oh, yes. I was wondering whether to put 2 in to hold them upright. But they did seem to be holding quite well. So I don't know how much these tete-a-tete cost. But I reckon I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bulbs in there. I think they were only about £1 or something in the market, and I'm coming around to the idea now of not forcing my own bulbs to enjoy indoors. I'm going to, before Christmas, there was a rush to get the hyacinth bulbs before they sell out. But next year, remind me of this. I'm going to buy them in the new year because I don't really like colourful bulbs on daffodils and tulips before Christmas. I want to have them, as spring is heralding around the corner. So I think I'll be better off buying them when somebody else has taken the risk and effort of growing them. Yeah, 2 of them like that. And then I'll be able to see the roots will grow down, and if needs be, I could just put a trickle of water in the bottom so the roots have got something to, lock down into. So having carefully saved all the soil that's on from the pots, I'm going to put that back into my, let's go, Wedgwood. Let's elevate our little lives here by going Wedgwood. Let's see if I can get some of that compost in there. And then I've got here, it's 1 big bulb and it's got like 2 little babies on the side. And I can put those at the top there. So they're just sort of balancing on the top and perhaps a little bit of soil on the edge. And I will have to get a cloth and just wipe away the bits of soil. And probably, actually what I might do, although I'm not cleaning the roots, I might just dabble it in water so the roots get a bit of water and do it like that. So quite a nice thing to do. It's nice to be out in the open air. I wouldn't be able to hear that bird song if I was sitting indoors with the doors and windows closed. Something nice to do if you've got children, or a sitting and chatting exercise. Sometimes when you want to talk to somebody, it can be quite hard, especially if you've got teenagers, getting them to talk to you. But if you have an activity, really dirty faster, that'll need washing off. But it's quite nice to be able to do an activity, but to be chatting at the same time. And it sort of takes the pressure off the big conversation that you might be having. So I'm going to carry on with these. So I might go for my modern Wedgwood next, my glass container. So I'm using the soil that I knocked off the other bulbs. And yes, okay, I love doing this. A little bit of a squeeze, a bit of a push, a bit of a wiggle, and then having a look at all that lovely growth, and then ripping it all apart. So a bit of waggle to water. I'm going to overpack. I think nothing looks worse than a mean-looking collection of flowers. So I would always say, you know, mind your budget. Don't spend over your budget. But if you can afford it, you know, decide what you can afford and buy as much as you can from what you can afford. And to make it look really opulent, I would plant in a small container so it looks overpacked, rather than planting in a large container and everything looking a little bit mean. And I'm keeping the bulbs quite high as well. It's again something that my friend did, so you could actually see the bulbs all exposed. And then just to stop them rocking around, I can just put a little bit of soil around the edges. I don't want them falling over. And I mustn't forget to use my little cup, which was the starting point. I've only had this cup for 9 months and never done anything with it. So a little bit of soil at the bottom, and I waggle my bulbs in my water just to water them, and then pack those in together. Now that means, look at that, huge! I'm left with my little green glass container, which I'm going to put blue flowers in. Is that going to go together, blue and green? Blue and green should never be seen without something in between. Not entirely sure, but the thing is, I get fed up with it. I can just, you know, unpot them. So nothing's permanent. If you don't like it, do it differently. It doesn't matter. So here goes. You know, that's got good growth coming through there. So squeezing the pot, holding up my hand to catch them. Oh, lovely. And here are these beautiful, I don't know whether I can just push them straight in instead of, you know, taking them apart and then repotting them. Perhaps I can just squidge them down. I think perhaps not. They're two pots slightly bigger. I can scrape away some of the soil, dunk it down, give it a water. That's better. Look, doesn't that look a million times better than having it in the plastic pot? Again, I just need to tuck the roots down, and it definitely needs a little bit of a clean and tidy. But you can see there, hope I don't drop that, how beautiful that looks, all grouped together. It really showcases it. And from having 3 pots of bulbs, I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little containers. So I have got a bit of soil left, and I'm actually going to plant something here. Do you remember that I did the fun video? You might have seen it a few weeks ago when I did a video showing you how to log on to Zoom Flower Class, and I filmed a short clip afterwards showing how to arrange flowers in a mug. Apart from the fact I didn't use a mug, I used a celery vase, and then because our celery had got to the stage where the length of the stems of celery weren't long enough to eat and it had gone all bushy, and Lisa, I think, who watched it, said, why didn't I plant the celery? So it's got some root growth on, just because it's been sitting in water for ages. So I thought what I'd do was to plant it. And then I just see what happens. Is it going to grow so I can eat celery? I think when you grow celery, you normally buy these white leaves, isn't it? And I think like rhubarb when you force rhubarb, you have to cover it up so it's got that sort of anemic look to it, which is what we think of as being the correct look for celery, or whether I just grow it and continually use it as a natural flower frog for arranging my flowers in. So as I've got a little bit of compost, I thought I would recycle that, put that back into the pot and plant my celery in there. It needs to be a little bit, I'm going to moisten that down a little bit. It's either going to work or it's not going to work, but really this bit of celery, having been deemed to be inedible, not enough stalk to eat, would have gone on the compost heap weeks and weeks ago. So it's been through one flower arrangement, which was a foliage arrangement, which lasted for quite a long time. As you say, Joan, a cut and plonk arrangement. And it just goes to show it doesn't have to be flowers that you're always arranging. It could be that you're doing things creatively with your fruit and veg. So I used to enjoy that with my mum when she'd been to the greengrocers, and then we always used to wash the fruit. We've got a habit of doing that. We used to wash the fruit because it was always loose, and then we'd stack it up and a bit like a Dutch master's painting, and make a really beautiful display in the fruit bowl. So even if you don't have flowers to hand, it may be that you can decoratively display your celery, or if you have herbs on your kitchen windowsill and things like that. So find a little bit of beauty wherever you go. That is what I say. So let me know in the comments what else you've got planned for this week. So there's no Zoom flower class this week. The next series of Zoom flower classes is 3 classes coming up. Start next week, the 28th of February. And these are the classes where I'm teaching you how to teach your own flower class. So we will be looking at week 1 is deciding what to teach. And I'm going to go through my thought process with you and share the sort of, I normally do a little grid to sort of test out what I'm going to teach. The week after that, we'll be talking about your timings in class, what to think about, because it might be a 2-hour class, but it won't be 2 hours of you demonstrating, and how to allocate your time and what you need to allow time for. And then the last class, we're going to talk about sort of overcoming your nerves and imposter syndrome and building confidence a little bit. And yes, definitely, Joan, I will let you know how this gets on. If I'm honest, it needs a little bit more soil. So off camera, you may well find me sieving this bucket to get all the dregs of soil out. And then I'll be adding them back into my container. It's got 2 chances, hasn't it? It's either going to work or it's not going to work. But I may have, yes, a beautiful, exotic celery bush by the end of the summer. And as I say, if you haven't already caught up with my YouTube video from yesterday, the one where we talked about Chippendale glass, I'll leave a link to that in the notes underneath the video. And then, as ever, I'll be live on my Facebook group, Flowers Start World, on Friday. So I'm thinking I might well share some of the things I bought when we went away for our trip to the potteries. So I bought some brand new stuff, which is quite expensive, and I bought a couple of sort of information books and pamphlets. And of course, I don't go anywhere without going to the charity shops. So I've got a limited selection of finds from the charity shops as well. So I will be happy to share those with you Friday at noon over on my Facebook group. So that's all for me for now. And I will catch up with you the same time, same place next week. And ladies and gentlemen, don't eat too many pancakes. You don't want to make yourself sick. So I shall say goodbye and do a little bit of washing and clearing up, and I will catch up with you next time. There is certainly going to be a little bit of washing up here. I might actually run anything under the cold tap outside in the garden, just so I don't get soil clogging up the sink. Bye then.